Welcome to our last lesson in this sequence of lessons on what money is worth: present value, net present value, the internal rate of return, and the discount rate. In this part, we are going to jump into a practice exercise. So there's no lesson outline. You could look at the written guide if you wanted to, but it defeats the purpose because the whole point is that you should be reading the instructions here and then completing the practice exercise on your own. So here's the scenario we're going to look at. Sir Richard Branson, who is famous and who you probably know because he made Virgin, the UK-based conglomerate, famous and expanded it into many different business areas over time, is considering two different ideas. One is that he could expand his company and take the Virgin Galactic division, which is set up to eventually provide space travel and transportation, and start offering trips to Jupiter. The second idea is to launch Virgin Asia, which would be an offshoot of the company's existing airline division and would be a low-cost airline for East and Southeast Asia. So we have to decide which of these ideas, if any, the company should pursue. Maybe they go after one, maybe they go after both, maybe neither one actually makes sense. To make a decision here, we can look at the IRR for each of these opportunities, come up with a quick approximation, and then compare it to the discount rate, WACC, the weighted average cost of capital. For Virgin, the entire company as a whole, WACC is 10%. For the Virgin Galactic division, WACC is higher at 15% because the risk and potential rewards are both higher. So the WACC that's 50% higher reflects the higher risk and also the higher potential rewards. And then for Virgin Asia, the WACC is lower at 8% than it is for the entire company because the risk is lower and the potential rewards are also lower from a move like this, which really just expands something the company is already doing, but isn't something radically different in the same way. The Jupiter fleet, we're saying, will cost £1,000 of upfront investment and it'll provide 100 in annual cash flows. And then we think the fleet or the business itself will be worth £1,200 at the end of 5 years. Now, these units should be in millions. If you look at the Excel file, up at the top, we say that anything in pounds is actually in millions. So this is actually 100 million in annual cash flows, but we're just leaving that out to simplify the text here a bit. For the Virgin Asia fleet, it's a 400 million upfront investment. There will be 30 million in annual cash flows and a 450 million long-term or resale value of the fleet for this business division at the end of 5 years. So your task is to make a decision based on this information. Now in Excel, I have already filled in the numbers down here under part 4, a real life example of these concepts. So pause this video now and go in and make the calculations yourself, calculate the IRR for both these opportunities, and then make a decision. Should you go after Virgin Galactic, Virgin Asia, both of them, or neither one of them? Okay, so here's how we'd go through and make this calculation. Now remember, to calculate IRR, we always need to show the upfront investment amount as a negative. So for the fleet purchase or sale, we'll link to the initial investment for the Jupiter fleet here. In each subsequent year, we're going to say 0 because nothing happens. And then at the end, we'll link to the resale or long-term value of the fleet beyond year 5 right here. Now for the cash flows from Jupiter trips in year 0, when the purchase initially takes place or the expansion initially takes place, it's going to be 0. And then in each year after that, we're going to link it to the 100 right here. We'll anchor that and then copy this across. We can add up the net cash flows down here. And then to calculate IRR, we can just use the built-in IRR function because we have regular timing here. Each cash flow is exactly 1 year apart. So we get to 13.1% for the IRR. Now, for the second scenario, it's similar, but we just have different numbers. So we'll link to the initial investment up here. We'll say 0 for each year in between. And then at the end, we'll link to the resale or long-term value of the aircraft beyond year 5. For the cash flows, we'll say 0 in year 0 because we haven't actually purchased the fleet or expanded there yet. And then in each subsequent year, we'll link to the 30 million in annual cash flows. We'll anchor that, copy it across. Then we can sum up the net cash flows, and then we can calculate IRR with the built-in IRR function. And so we get to 9.6%. In this case, the decision-making is pretty simple. The 13.1% here, although it's higher than the WACC for the entire company, it's actually lower than WACC for Virgin Galactic. So this opportunity with these numbers doesn't make sense to pursue. On the other hand, the Virgin Asia opportunity has an IRR of 9.6%. That 9.6% is higher than Virgin Asia's 8%, so it does make sense to pursue this opportunity. Now, it's lower slightly than WACC for the company as a whole, but that doesn't matter because we have to look at these on a division by division or group by group basis when you're looking at a company making decisions that affect only one division, as we are here. This 10% number would be more relevant if we were looking at an acquisition of a company that would affect all the divisions of Virgin, or something that would radically change everything the company is doing. But if we're just looking at a change or expansion or acquisition that only impacts one division, we only care about the WACC or opportunity cost for that division. So you do a deal or you complete an expansion project only if the project-specific IRR beats the project-specific WACC. The Jupiter idea looks better on paper, but if you think about the opportunity cost, the risk and reward are different. You have much higher risk, also much higher potential rewards for the Virgin Galactic division, and in this case, the higher IRR is not enough to beat what we're normally targeting. With Virgin Asia, yes, the IRR is lower. So if you just look at it in absolute terms, it seems like a worse idea, but it beats the opportunity cost for that division. We have lower risk and lower potential rewards, so it makes more sense to pursue it. And as I said, the entire company WACC is only relevant if something actually affects the entire company, not just one group. Now, of course, you're not going to actually make a real life decision solely based on a simple analysis like this. A lot more will go into it. You'll look at the qualitative side as well. You'll think about the people in each division, the regulatory environment. A lot of other factors will play into it. The financial model or the simplified financial model is just one part of the evidence that you use when moving toward a decision, but it is an important part, and this is a good example of how you use these concepts in real life to prioritize decisions, to decide whether acquisitions or deals or expansion projects make sense, and so on and so forth. That's it for this sequence of lessons. Coming up next, you will learn about the most important formula in finance and how you can value any company or asset. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we go from these simplified lessons in this introduction to the concepts into the more complex examples and case studies in this course.